listening to Shut Up and Invest.
And welcome to another episode of Shut Up and Invest. J Money, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? I'm doing good.
We convinced
Jamie to come back.
Jamie to stay. Like,
Yeah,
wait,
just stay.
is your
Hang on.
wife gonna get pissed? And she's from where?
Poland.
How does a Polish wife handle the doghouse?
Oh, man. It's not a pretty sight, guys. Not a pretty sight,
So
man.
he promised us 30 more minutes.
30 more minutes, man. But hey, he got some more information. We got to get out to the masses. So he's
Yeah.
got to stay.
Definitely, man.
Kevin has no idea about the doghouse, just so you know.
Yeah.
We'll be here. It'll be like 11:30. I'm like, I got to go. Like, you don't understand. I got to go.
I'm like, just telling you with me.
Yeah, that's why I got to go.
That rule, like, is your friend, is he married?
Listen, man. I got a best.
No. Oh. Yeah.
One of my best friend's wives hated me until I married Jackie. Like, now we're best friends. Before it was like I couldn't come around.
Hey.
So,
Oh, man.
no, we got Jamie back, man. We got him to stay.
If you didn't hear the other episode, Jamie, introduce yourself. Let everybody know what you do.
Yes. So I'm Jamie Baker, commercial real estate broker. We're based out of the Coral Springs, Parkland area. We also do private equity. Our specialty is multifamily, apartments, and senior housing, assisted living facilities.
We want to talk about
We'll talk
a little
about
bit
that.
about that. The
Okay.
previous episode, if you find it, you'll find a little bit about the private equity and the multifamily. If you're looking to get into multifamilies, Jamie's definitely somebody that could help you get involved. But today, we really wanted to get into, I think, what is probably something that I've heard lately in the last 6 months, a lot of people bring up. And I think we're coming into that age where the baby boomers
Yes.
are starting to really need their own facilities and their own places. And there's a huge market for it.
It is.
Huge market.
Yeah.
Definitely huge market. I've been hearing the numbers thrown around that people are making to assisted living from just one property,
Sure.
have been blowing my mind. So that's why actually right now me and Jamie are actually talking about doing some stuff up in a different market in PA about it with another friend of ours, but we're definitely learning as much as we can. So that's why I say, hey, you got to come on and
Sure.
tell everybody else what you've been, helping me
Sure.
and my partners learn about. So
Sure. No, it's a fantastic model. And as Kevin mentioned, it's people are talking about it, but I think not understanding how it all works.
Definitely.
What are some of the things that you have to check off the checklist and getting yourself involved. I've actually found it a fascinating model, and how I actually got involved with it was initially I started out as doing financial modeling and had an opportunity to meet someone that owned several of them, and end up helping them identify a property that fit the criteria, and then began to work alongside of them with managing all of the financials in terms of what it needed to be to make it a viable investment.
And then you saw when you took a look at that
dollar
business.
signs.
Yes. Yeah. And
Now you had a background in medical before,
Yes.
right? So kind of give us an idea of your background in medical. And then,
So yes, I actually own a medical company with my sister in Medicare Advantage, and so that's providing the typical programs that when you become 65 and you're in retirement and taking advantage of all of the benefits that go along with that. So we work with a number of different carriers and offering the different types of packages and plans that they have for
You
seniors.
still have that business with her?
Yes, but my sister primarily, she operates it, but we still I have a small partnership in that.
You're a silent partner.
Silent partner.
so I guess that business kind of worked kind of hand in hand with the assisted living facilities, you think? Or it's kind
I think, so it does, because what you find is that as we all age, there's really a lack of facilities and the ability. Not everyone wants to go to the big box facility. And what we found is, and our partners in that space are providing those services that when we would meet the participants in programs, many of them wanted to be in residential facilities, but there just wasn't the selection
For options.
that options that they were looking for.
Give us a range, let's say in this South Florida market, of kind of the options that someone over the age of 65 is looking at if they're looking to be at in a facility of someone who's there constantly kind of keeping an
Sure.
eye on them. And
So you mean like a range in terms of,
anything from a single family
Okay.
to
okay,
The
yeah.
large box.
So large box. So for the residential, for like I say, let's start with. I typically find that you want to start with, if you're going to be getting into the business, you want to start with the ability to have 8 residents. I think that's like the basic number.
So one, you said,
So typically you'll have 2 residents to a room.
okay.
And what I found is in the residential space, you want to have at least 4 bedrooms.
Okay.
That's the bare minimum. And why I say that, in my experience, the 3-bedroom model, 6 residents, the numbers are really tight and it doesn't give you the kind of spread that you need and the earnings to make it
worth it.
Yeah.
feasible. Yeah. So the first step on the smaller scale, minimum of an 8-bed residential
So you're saying
facility.
two people per room, so
2
4
people
beds.
per room. Mhm.
Got it. All right. And then how many bathrooms? So would that be like a 4-bed, 4-bath, right? Because you kind of want to.
So typically you want to have 3 bathrooms. You want to think of it as for every 2 residents, there's 1 bathroom. That's kind of how you want to kind of process it. And then you want to have your common area where everyone can come together and they can watch TV, they can do activities.
Play dominoes.
Dominoes. No, really, yeah, dominoes.
Well, we play spades. I'm pretty good at dominoes too, but
I just
play
saw,
spades.
I don't know, completely off topic.
Of course.
But Jimmy Butler just got traded over
he's
here
out
to
of
the
my
Heat.
area.
yeah.
We got some in roof for now, man. We were hurting, but
Oh man, it was painful.
Yeah. And then the first thing he did, they took him to Calle Ocho, 8th Street, and they took him to Domino Park because he proclaims to be a top domino player.
Okay.
So they said, all right, you think you play dominoes? Come down to Calle Ocho, Domino Park. And they have it all on video. It was cool. You need to check it out.
Have you played the Cuban? The Cubans have different rules. I've played Cuban dominoes. I've played our dominoes. There's some different numbers in there. Yeah, it's different.
I've lived in Miami my whole life. I don't play in Domino Park because I like to keep my money in my pocket. and you will get hustled over there. So
Really, it's not for the weak at heart.
it's not for the Jimmy Butler got a nice little paycheck from the Miami Heat. So he walked in there with confidence.
Right.
Be careful, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have to come shut up and invest with us?
I'll come hang out at the assisted living facilities and play a little domino. Anyway, you were saying, so those are the starting
That's
points.
the starting point, right? The
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
1 residence.
Yeah. So for somebody that's starting out, you want to look at, demographic. You want to look at areas where who's going to be a resident, right? And you have to know that because there's different tiers. First tier is, you have your entry level tier, where you have your typical, that are going to fall under a certain income bracket. And then you have your working class, and then you have your more affluent.
Mhm.
So you want to know who's going to be your resident. Now, not that all 3 tiers have value. You just have to understand demographically, how is that model going to work, where I'm going to be, and then you have to really study the area. One of the particular things is, identifying synagogues. That's huge.
This is if you're in anywhere or if you're in South Florida?
Well, particularly in South Florida.
Okay.
That's one golden rule of
Tip.
thumb is to identify, synagogues or any religious organization within a certain area demographically, because families typically want to have that element, and they do often ask, hey, where is some place that, we can go? And so being aware of those things, they are really, really important.
So that's a single family model, right? Because we're talking about the option. Of course, in that, like you just said, you can have the lower.
We're getting it already, like first 5 minutes. 4 bedrooms.
That was a gym. Yeah, that was.
Find the church.
What's funny is, me and my boy, we've been talking about getting one by a church up in PA, which is, the church is a big part of where we're looking to do it. So
Man, it's
you don't have to tell everybody that golden nugget. Yeah.
Well, maybe you guys can take that out of the podcast, No,
So
I'm kidding.
what's the next option? Because that's a single family house, right? And then you have the different levels in there. Do you see multi-units?
So what I find out in terms of risk mitigation, right? So I believe in 1 levels for the model. I mean, that's what we're really about. I think because I get calls all the time from investors who want to invest in the model, and they have great ideas for your 2-3 story. Exception to the rule are the residents, their capacities, right? So, and you have to know who is going to be your resident. Goes back to that again, and why, and what types of limitations are you going to be able to offer your service to those particular residents. What I found to be to reduce risk mitigation, have reasonably really good returns, is where they need assistance. Meaning, like if they have challenges, just maybe putting on their shoes, or they still are functional and they can do day to day. They just need a little help with some of the other, maybe
taking
the medicines and things of that nature.
Okay.
But when you mention taking medicines, the first thing that comes to mind is an administrator. You have to have an administrator, and typically that person is an RN prior to becoming an administrator, because the process to become an administrator is a much shorter process than someone having no really medical experience or licensing to come in and say, I'm going to be of administer the process.
We'll have to get into that.
Sure.
The whole license out of it. What other kind of properties do you see down here that people are using for assisted? Because you have the residents, right? Then you have the big facilities, and then what's in between that?
In between is once you go over in Florida, if you go over 14, if you go over 14 residents, then the criteria changes. There's more licensing involved. Not that it can't be worth the additional licensing and cost that goes along with it. But I think the key component we find is just really understanding that cost, and how is that going to, because you increase more responsibility, but does it improve your return on your investment? I think that's always the key. Now, do you have those scenarios where absolutely, you're saying we're going to a 28 unit and you can manage the risk appropriately? It also depends on the facility, what condition the facility is, what amenities that it has. 2 more really important things is, being compliant. There's just certain things, the doors. And if you're converting something that's been a residential or been a multifamily property, then you have to take those things in consideration, because that's going to affect, your cost. Changing the doors, making it compliant. You have to have the fire panels. Things of those nature are really, ACA, who governs, particularly in the state.
ACA is what's that mean?
I forget.
It's some kind of licensing regulation organization.
Yeah, my wife,
stuff.
she knows it like the back of her hand.
As the senior police, bro.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah, she has the license, as you know.
Your wife does.
My wife has the license, and that's really
a license to be an administrator.
Yes.
Administration part.
Yes. So she handles.
She was an RN previously.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, okay. She was a RN. Got her bachelor's degree, and became, after doing that, then she got her license as administrator, and it was one of those things where it just made sense. We had talked about the model many years ago, and we've had a lot of success in the model based on the fact that we had the foundation, to make it work.
I'm super interested in this, and it's funny because I've done a few acquisitions and financing on residential properties
Right.
for clients in the last 15 years that have used these properties for assisted living facilities. And they're like crackheads. If you find another one of these, you call me. And I'm like, this thing needs to be making some serious money because they're willing to pay their mama, their cousin, and their aunt to put their name on it to make this happen. So what is the... I've been always super interested. And I swear to you, 2 weeks ago, I'm having lunch with an old client of mine, friend, she's a PA. She's a physician's assistant. And she was like, man, I would like to get into something. And the idea of an ALF came up. She's like, I need to start looking into this. So it's perfect. I'm glad you're here talking about this because right off the jump, I know I'm going to send her this show. Yep. She's going to listen to this part and say, you talking about me? Yes, I am talking about and everybody else out there. So let's talk about if I'm a landlord and I get an 8-unit building, I'm thinking the revenue here is the rent that someone who wants to live in this one bedroom is going to pay me. If I get approached with the idea of an ALF, is it the same type of revenue source are we looking at? Basically, they're going to pay me a rent, or is there now some insurance involved, some services? What kind of revenue streams are we talking about for this type of investment?
Great question. So the first part of that, revenue streams, is it goes back to the different tiers. So when you think about the first tier is you have your self-pay. Right? And that's another layer to it. So you have your residents that are self-pay, meaning that they typically pay, every month between $25. It could be up to $5,000 to $6,000.
I've heard that.
It just depends on the facility. I think, as we all know, location.
How Mac Daddy, you got it. Got it. I'm still taking notes.
Yeah. So, and then you have the other component, which is, you're able to tap into some of the subsidiaries, set-asides and supplements and so forth. That typically is going to be somewhere between, could be as low as $2,000 and it can be as much as $3,000. I think what we find in that model is there's some responsibility on the resident. Sometimes it just depends on each individual.
Do you see a mixture, or is co-pay with insurance, or is it always one or the other?
Yeah, I find that it's one or the other, but I think we've had and we've seen mixed where you have, so the basic numbers we always look at is if you have 8 residents and the average monthly fee is $3,000. So if you say managing the costs, and we've done this so many times, we know that your overall expenses are going to be 50%.
Okay. So right now you said $24,000 a month gross income. You're going to count about $12,000 for expenses. You're looking at $12,000 cash flow off of 8 people. Yeah. And we can put 8 people in a 4-bedroom because
that's it. That's the magic.
Those some good numbers.
And we're talking about housing plus services usually is encompassed in that $3,000.
Sure. So one of the really great things, as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, is there's a shortage of senior housing just across the country. And, we have the baby boomers.
And especially like good. We'll get to that, but good senior housing, right?
Yeah. It's tough. And seeing it, like, for example, of having someone give us a call and say, hey, we're trying to figure something out, and then going to the facility and just seeing the challenges of a 6-resident model and really trying to give great value. I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just difficult to make the revenue that you need to make it make sense.
To give quality service.
And for all the additional requirements that you have, it's particularly in Florida when we talk about senior care. I think that situation, unfortunately, that happened in Hollywood during the storm, it really changed how people looked at. There's a more focus on it.
That was during the hurricane when they lost power. The big yeah, kind of talking about the senior living facility lost power during the hurricane. They had to take them all out the building, and you probably know more what happened. But
there were several fatalities because of lack of and like I said, they weren't prepped, and they just didn't have.
How large was that facility?
Oh gosh, that was a pretty large facility. Right? Yeah, that was. I want to say it was more than 80 residents.
You have that large facility, yeah.
Yeah, and it just was overwhelming. For them. And with that came now that, there's certain new regulations in terms of what you have to have at your facility in case there's a power outage. These things now are being really emphasized and so forth. So
with all that comes more expenses.
Correct. And
so a question as far as like if I'm someone looking to get into the business, which I am, but also pro and con versus that big one, which they obviously, generate income.
Sure.
Versus smaller. As someone who might be saying, where should my parent go?
Sure.
Is it cheaper to send them to one of those large facilities compared to what we're talking about, a smaller one? Is that why you might see it? Or they just don't know that the options exist to actually put them in something where it's like maybe 8 residents per one administrator compared to 20 to 1?
Right. So that's a good question. So we start with case studies ourselves, and we assess demographic areas where we think there's opportunity. One of the first things that you have to do, and which is a painful thing to have to tell someone that they bought a 5-bedroom house and they didn't check to see if it was within 1,000 feet of another residential ALF, and only being told that they wouldn't be able to get the approval and having to put the house back on the market for a loss.
Because they bought it for that.
They bought it.
Specific.
There's specific guidelines that you have to be within 1,000 feet of another ALF. Yeah. If you're not, then you're gonna have
a for sale sign on your property. Or you turn into a landlord.
Now that's Florida. Is each state different? Each state does have different.
They
right?
do.
Okay, so main thing is you want to definitely. I don't know where the money signs that Kevin, but you you definitely want to check the guidelines, licensing laws, zoning, all that.
Yeah.
Is there a place that you would recommend that people who are interested in this idea can go and check out what the guidelines are? Is there a website? Is there?
Yeah. Gosh, I'm gonna. You guys have to post it because my wife does.
Yeah, she does
all of the operations.
I like your style. Like, just talk to my sister.
Yeah, she's always telling me that. Okay, this has to happen. This. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you got it handled. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. All right.
I would imagine, and I'm just thinking to myself, if. I mean, in my family, it doesn't work that way. We got to take them in no matter how it is. But I do have a story in my case where my grandfather lost his residency here in the United States because he thought he was good to go. And he said, I'm good in Colombia. I got my people there and I don't care. I'm not going to come back, and let it expire. Fast forward X amount of years later, he got sick, dialysis, couldn't take care of himself. And the whole family lives in the United States, works in the United States. His people, when he was good and having a good time with in Colombia, they're not around to take care of you once you're 80 years old and have to go to dialysis 3 times a week.
Right.
So we had to end up having to, because nobody could leave their careers in the United States to go move to Colombia to take care of them.
Right.
And he wasn't allowed to come back here, much less now with dialysis and all that stuff, to be an expense to the United States.
Right.
So we were on a mission, and my grandfather lasted like, I don't know how many years. Dialysis, on a mission, medical, the whole thing, and years of assisted living facilities. In Colombia, right? We're not even talking about United States. So I definitely know the power and the benefit of this because it's not always sometimes a luxury. Most of the time it's a necessity.
Yeah, definitely.
It is, and that's sharing your story, and that's interesting because it's not always feasible, but that's just the culture too, is to not send to the facility. But I think what happens sometimes is the uncertainty of the care. and not wanting to kind of lose that connection. We all feel responsible. And I think, just very commendable, of your family to take that. And,
that's kind of where I see the power with the model of like, the single family house where you don't see your loved one in a big facility where you don't know what's going on with a bunch of other people. Like they're in a house with maybe 8 people, let's say, where they have a lot of care and attention, and it just feels better.
Or not. And that's kind of what makes a good one or a bad one.
Yeah.
You
guys
if they're
are
being ignored, they're out of there. But if you find one with, a good vibe, good people that, take care of your grandfather, grandmother, mother, or father, or whoever needs it, then you feel like, okay, I can go to work. Definitely. And know that this person's going to be taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of amenities or activities, does a good facility offer that kind of, because I'm sure with that expense count, right? And the expenses, let's get the expenses first, right? So, that's food, that's services.
Right. So dietitian, that's one of the things that, you want to definitely have as a part of your team, because typically, as we all age and things don't always work as well, typically their PC, primary physician will say, we want to regulate your sugar, or want you to eat more vegetables, or, there's just certain foods that are just high in things that are not in their best interest. So having a dietitian, and then I think one of the expenses that can be a big challenge, because there's also being an owner operator, so you take the person who has an RN license and is an administrator, and now you're doing 7 things and being responsible for all of the moving parts, which I think is extremely tough. But obviously you reduce some of your expenses and you're able to have a little bit of a better return. I think you really have to measure that too, to make sure that you don't burn out. That's something that I see as well, is just...
Owner operator is the person who's like running the business of the house and everything else, and the medical side.
And the medical side. And the food
utilities
prep,
and the food
and the laundry. And so that can
just
be tough.
So you know, I don't want to be that. I look at this as the complete true passive income business if you do it the right way.
Absolutely.
I know real estate. Let me go hire Jamie's wife or whoever to be the administrator, right?
Yes.
And then you run it like that, and then I can truly have a passive stream of income, which is probably going to make us tenfold of what that one house would make as a rental.
Absolutely.
In that business. And it's worth it. But I do get where you have that guy or that woman who's trying to do it all himself, where, hey, some probably can do it, but some might run into...
It's not something that I don't want to put the wrong information out about it. I think, if you manage everything always comes down as how do you manage expenses. If you can manage expenses and manage your time management, because it can become overwhelming and you are responsible for those senior citizens, those residents. And you want to make sure that you're operating at a high level of awareness, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't.
Got it. So you said the food. So you guys you're feeding them, right? You take care of the food.
Oh yeah,
we take care of other like trips and activities that.
So it depends. That's a great question. So it just depends on what limitations they have. The really cool part about it is that the intimacy of, like you guys both mentioned, of not being in a large facility and having a sense of not having a rotating shift, and being fortunate enough to have, a group of team members, CNAs or staff who are there regularly day to day. It does volumes.
It becomes like a family.
It does. And what you see is the things that typically, depending on their level of health, that they can't do. You'll see things like singing. They have someone who have played the violin, the piano. We honor everyone, no matter what their faith is. So there's always set aside time for that. There's always game time. There's always movie time. And one of the interesting things is the design of the facility is it's interesting, because I'm like, all right, let's make it be, we want to do modern. And that's, I'm always pushing the limit. And they just wheel me in like, no, that's not gonna
go. That's not what,
yeah, that's
that
not what
matter to them.
But believe it or not, if they like it where it's relatable to where
they don't want your all white granite. Yeah, they don't want
Now, occasionally in your specialty area of the ALF model, they may, want some of those amenities and the modernness, but for your overall, where your business model is going to have the most success, you'll find that the things that they most relate to gives them the most comfort. And I think all of us can relate to that. And so when we think about designing out the model and what all the things that, not what we want, right? It's what my grandmother would have wanted or what she did.
Definitely.
This is a good episode,
money,
bro.
Man. We got plenty of gems for social media out of this episode.
What are some of the pitfalls that you see people make when they're picking the facility and trying to create this business model? What are some of the common mistakes you see?
Good question. So the biggest one I see is leasing the residential space opposed to buying it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's huge.
Okay.
That's really, and seeing the pain of that. So, because just off the top, as we all talk about business, you're looking at mortgage payment, $3,000. It's a lot different when it's a mortgage payment and when you're paying, leasing a rent. And that to me is big because as you continue to pay down the mortgage, it gives you more value because you own the asset, as we know, even on the other side of just talking about more traditional type investments.
Also, with the larger income, you're paying it off to a point where you're going to not have that mortgage in place anymore. At some point,
tax advantage of paying,
it's just so many
appreciation of the property.
Oh, so many, like really. And so then, but I think that in all fairness, when you're starting out and you're trying to figure things out, you're just trying to kind of, okay, I want to do this. But then what happens, your landlord, you've made the corrections to the home. And what I find, and when we've gone in and we've helped owner operators, increase their cash flow or just kind of control the model and have better returns. The goal always is, I hear it all the time, like, no, we want to just be here for 5 years. We're not going to resign the lease. But keep in mind, you've made all of these adjustments and renovations to that property. And now you're talking about moving residents out of a space that some of them have been with you for 5 years or more, depending on.
I can see where that would be difficult.
That's challenging.
If I'm going to you, I want to have that security and that.
Or vice versa. When the landlord sees that you're making money in this place, then they start saying, wait a minute, I can do this. And if you don't want to leave and you want to sign the lease, they may not want to renew it.
Sure.
Definitely.
That's huge. That is major. And I've seen that like time and time again. People who really too have a passion for really serving our elderly community and seeing them be the ones that just didn't have all the right information, or maybe at that time just didn't have the resources and didn't have the extra strategy to be able to
passion,
prepare
but
for it.
not the business acumen probably to run the business right. So they should have probably partnered. We talk about partnering a lot, partnering with someone who has the business acumen with that passion is probably the goal to have a successful business with that.
Yep. And you can exit strategy, just to add that component is you can actually go into it as a joint venture partnership with the exit strategy. After 5 years, you stabilize the business and then you decide early on, buy one person out and then open up a second facility and then that person gets bought out. That's a very effective model. And we've used that, quite a few times, opposed to just renting. And I've seen the cycle once you rent and now exactly what Kevin said, there's no flexibility. You're there, you made $10,000 in renovations just to be in compliance. You've done all of these additions. You may have added a room and they allow you to because it is really going to limit your ability to have options. Yeah.
From a whole different angle.
Sure.
If I'm an investor, if I'm a wholesaler, if I'm an acquisition specialist and I'm able to get properties and I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, well, this might be a niche that I can approach people that have these facilities and see if they're looking for other properties.
Sure.
What would an operator of these be looking for in properties? That way, me as an acquisition specialist
Sure.
can identify what are the perfect
Right.
diamonds in the
Locations,
rough.
property.
Yeah, no, great question. So it starts with location. And then once we move from that, it becomes, who's your resident? What type of income that they typically fall in what range. And then you want to look at demographically, potentially who's going to be a self-pay. I mean, self-pays are great, but the other side of self-pays too, there's a large pool too that are fighting for that. I think it goes to what we talked about is the creating an intimate environment where it's very welcoming. It gives them a sense of a home and not kind of being shuffled around, so to say. I think that's an advantage. But ideally, it starts with 1,000 square feet, understanding how many facilities are even outside of 1,000 square feet to be able to assess to the competitiveness of it. What kind of facilities are they? Are they your entry-level facilities? Are they working class? Are they, affluent? And then assessing. The biggest thing I say is a part of it is, okay, where can I have the most impact? Where is there a lack of housing? Where does it seem to be housing? And you can always, nothing wrong. I go visit facilities all the time, just to kind of get an idea of what the staff's like, what amenities do they offer, how clean is the facility, watching the residents there, how are they engaged with the staff, those kind of things. Yeah, so that's one of the things that you want to avoid if you're considering identifying a ALF property that would be suitable is at all costs avoid HOAs. It's just not conducive to the model. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, though, in South Florida, particularly.
We have HOA heaven. It's everywhere around here.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other component really is just identifying the right vendors. We've been very fortunate. I think when you're starting out, or even if you set a goal to say, you know what, I want to start putting a preliminary infrastructure together. So start thinking about, okay, who's a dietitian? Because that's a key component to your facility. It's not just the administering and the things that go along with helping those residents with different needs that they have, but it's really about, that's a key component is what they're eating and who's that person that's designing, their diets, because that's everyone always can't eat the same things and you have to be able to accommodate that. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, the person that's the dietitian isn't also actually providing the food. They're just kind of regulating it. Or
Sure. Good question. Yeah. So what they're doing is basically writing out the ingredients and what in the resident number one or that resident number two, what are they able to have that would be in alignment with what's been recommended by their physician.
And you have a separate person who actually cooks the food.
You can,
or
you
the dietitian cooks, prepares, brings
You
it.
can. I mean, they're dietitians. We've been fortunate enough to have several of them that through relationships that we've over the years that we've met that work at other facilities and, they've come and work with us. But ideally, if you can have a dietitian that also can provide that component, it obviously allows you to control the quality. And I think that's the biggest thing for us is like we want to exceed the expectations of the family as well as that resident. And the way to do that is by, controlling the controllables, which starts with dietitian working very closely with the physician in that office and making sure that, hey, John can't have salt, or we have to be careful about certain types of foods and those kind of things. So, yeah.
So we talked about kind of like the demographics of the property and the location. I assume you can probably do this in every asset class, C, A, B, C, or is there a certain one where you want to be like in a certain type of neighborhood? Because you have elderly in every neighborhood,
Right.
And usually they want to be closer to where their family's at, correct? Or is there a certain type of neighborhood where you kind of want to focus on?
So I say, you have a larger pool twofold. You have a larger pool of potential residents in the working class areas. But there you typically have more competition.
Got it.
So I think the key component is really niching how you're going to welcome the public to your facility. And what I mean specifically about that is, having the right activities. Things that I find that matter most is giving access to the family in a way that allows them to have a sense of security. There's a lot of things that go along with it, I think, but it's challenging to say, hey, grandma is now going to be at a facility and she's been in our home. And now you see the heartbreak in people when they can't manage them because maybe they aren't able to walk. Those are realities. And that's what goes back to like, okay, who's going to be your resident and what services that you're going to want to offer? And are you going to master those services? Not offer them because of the return, but offer them because you have developed the model to have those capacities. And like, that's really huge.
Yeah, you kind of want to figure out what can I handle or take on as far as resident.
Right. And then how is that going to work in your model in terms of outsourcing and cost, right? So if they are in a, say, entry-level type of facility, then how is that going to work with the subsidized things that they may receive and then the services that you offer? And that's one of the things that I see with the 6 residential model that is just so tight. There's not much room for fluctuation. If your cost goes up this much, it affects, your earnings.
The whole facility.
Yeah.
And I think we can wrap it up on this one. But for someone who's got a property and says, you know what, this A unit might actually be great for this idea, and they hear this show and they want to explore it, the challenge of having a property sitting empty in the beginning.
Sure.
You prep it, you do all of it, you go get consulting, you put in the money, you prep this thing. How do you start filling the beds in the beginning when you are just starting out and you just identified a perfect property,
sure,
but you don't necessarily have 3 or 4 people knocking on your door saying, this is what I want?
It's a great question. Real good question. So the first part of that is your marketing campaign. Building relationships with the physicians in the area. Okay. Having a program would engage. I mean,
churches, right?
Churches are fantastic. Your specialty, internal medicine, physicians, family physicians, typically for seniors, that's kind of a starting point as well. But I think that's really a good question because you can have a great facility, but if you don't have residents, you don't have a business. And so I think even before you even start to work on the financials, marketing, letting people know who you are, what you do, letting them get a chance. What I find it's a business, it's a touchy-feely business, meaning, people want to know, okay, who are these people? If you're going to be involved in the community, even if you are going to be an absentee owner, they need to know what the culture is and who that person is that is responsible for those residents. And I think if you can solidify that, now that's really where the game changer is, because then you are able to attract residents that are in some of the big box facilities, but because you have that personalized care and people can see from experience of speaking with you and your staff and learning about inviting them over to your facility. There's certain things, and we won't get into that. I know we're wrapping up, but there's certain things that you cannot do in terms of marketing before you open, So you have to be really careful. So there's just ways that you have to be within guidelines of what the state of Florida and other states may require, and just getting your name out there. Introducing yourself to the office manager is phenomenal. Hey, my name's Larry. We're opening up, my wife and myself, or my family, we're opening a facility. Wanted to come over and introduce ourselves. If there's anything that we can ever do, come over and do a workshop. Come educate your staff. Those things are priceless.
Got it. Building trust, right?
Yeah.
Build trust before you even get to that point.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I know that I'm extremely interested. I know you are too, and I'm sure we'll probably talk to you more about it too, and probably have you come on and talk some more about it, kind of break down exactly how the numbers look in detail too about it,
Definitely.
And this is something I want to keep going on more about because it's such a deep, interesting, market vehicle, and there's so much to kind of talk about. You can't do it in one time, honestly.
And I know because I'm telling you, I have clients banging on my door. Finding the property is such a key component to these business models that
it's the niche.
That it's a thing. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, great show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, brother.
You're welcome, brother. You guys are both welcome, man. Good brothers, man. Been a real pleasure.
I think we're done, dude.
Hey, we're good. Out of here, man. Out of here. Shut up and invest, and
we're out.
Hey, thank you once again for listening to Shut Up and Invest. If you guys are motivated at the thought of continuing your real estate journey with us, then visit shutupandinvest.com. There you can join our community and take advantage of more free resources. And don't forget, please like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast so you're first to hear our new content every week. Most importantly, get active and don't forget to shut up and invest.